Hello, I'm Dr. Jigar Panchan, occupational therapist, OTR. This is a radical mastectomy video or as an occupational therapist in surgical conditions.
So here let me describe the case that Mrs. X is the patient and she is a 55-year-old woman with two children, a son aged 27 years and a daughter aged 23 years. And Mrs. X is married but has been estranged from her husband for 4 years. He still shares the family home. So prior to this admission, Mrs. X worked as a computer analyst and would like to return to this line of work in the future. So Mrs. X has a family history of breast cancer, and including her mother and two aunts. That was the briefing about the patient and her condition, and also the family background. That was an occupational profile which I mentioned at present, and the present condition of the patient. So now let's go further. That is 12 years prior to amputation. Mrs. X has undergone two courses of chemotherapy, followed by radiotherapy for cancer and her left breast. So these therapies failed to produce any reduction in the size of the tumor. So Mrs. X underwent a modified radical left-sided mastectomy, which included excision of the lymph nodes of the left axilla. So 17 of the 27 nodes excised were subsequently found to be cancerous. So that's why the 2 years after her mastectomy, Mrs. X had a reconstructive surgery, and last year she underwent further plastic surgery to create a nipple for the reconstructed breast, which gave an excellent cosmetic results. So Mrs. X has returned to work after her mastectomy, continued to take uh, say tamoxifen maybe, which she could need to take for 5 years, and received 6 months mammograms of her right breast. So there was an evidence of recurrent cancer until January fall this year, and when she presented to her general practitioner with a large necrotic lesion in her left axilla. So after MRI scan and a biopsy of the lesion, Mrs. X was diagnosed with a radiation-induced angiosarcoma of the left axilla. So it is now the another problem has begun. So that's what the cancer. It doesn't mean that you excise the part affected, you are treated, you are cured. That is not the thing. There are also other forms of the problems which occurs with the patient and her conditions, and that put them at a stack at a particular time. So that is again a problematic situation. So sarcomas are again, if you say, are malignant. So they are occurring in the soft tissue and bone. So so if you say that the soft tissue are those that connect, supportive, and surround anatomic structures. Angiosarcomas are rarer, highly malignant tumors occurring in the vascular endothelium, usually arising in the skin, subcutaneous tissue, and glandular sites such as the breast and thyroid. So that was more about the kind of angiosarcomas. So here if we come back again to the patient, that is the Mrs. X received two courses of chemotherapy to which the tumor failed to respond. So the surgical exploration of the area revealed that the tumor was quite evident and had extended to and involved the brachial plexus. So the excision of the tumor would not be possible at this time. So Mrs. X underwent a left four-quarter amputation with curative intent. So that was the that is till now happened, and she went through the treatment. And this involved the complete removal of the left, uh, uh, say, of the left arm along the scapula and clavicle. So now there is a bigger problem. So when it is just thought that radical mastectomy is a small thing to occur, just and it doesn't involve any other parts of the body, but it's not so here, because here in the case it has increased, and there's because of the sarcoma she also has to went to under amputation. So now this patient is very much complicated, because it's not just about radical mastectomy, but that is also a loss of limb. So amputation commonly results in phantom limb phenomenon. The individual's awareness to residual pain or sensation in the absent limb, because the generally it's not always that every patient will go through amputation, but it is important not to neglect any kind of things when we are treating with the patient with radical mastectomy. Even if the arm is there, but the range of motion of the shoulder and everything will be affected. So that's why you're seeing these images. They are showing certain exercises which is to be done for the patients with radical mastectomy, because it is important to improve the range of motion of the shoulder, to decrease the pain, to maintain the strength as well. And that's why Mrs. X experienced a painful burning sensation in her absent limb, a phenomenon that lasts for years for some patients, possibly due to the division of the major nerves at the stump, which provides inappropriate sensory stimuli to the central nervous system. So that's how this phantom limb sensation will start interfering with the normal functioning of the of Mrs. X. So now let's talk further about our occupational therapy assessment methods and how we can treat these individuals in this context. So, and this after the referral, we occupational therapists can do the functional assessment and rehabilitation, followed by the left side non-dominant four-quarter amputation. So no formal standardization, standardized instruments were used as a part of occupational therapy intervention with Mrs. X. However, examples like AMPS can be used. Examples like Rehabilitation Unit of Chicago, RIC functional assessment scale can be used. AMPS on the other side has examines the motor and process skills required in activities of daily living, and it would be appropriate for the use with this patient, as it assesses skills including posture, mobility, and strength, and also the adaptive capabilities needed to carry out tasks. So it is more of adaptive capabilities which are very much important for this patient as such. So the so if you say that this is the picture which I had mentioned here is the picture which I mentioned in throughout this class is about the normal exercises, but this cannot be done again with this kind of patient, because the patient underwent through amputation. But this is just for a reference. I have shown certain pictures related to the present topic. So as I told, Rick, the functional assessment scale also assesses physical disability patients' ability to carry out abilities, and one of the aims is to capture those differences in lifestyle so that they can be incorporated into evaluation, goal setting, and treatment planning. So I'll be talking further about certain these components which I mentioned about, that the interview, assessment, domestic activities, home visit, liaison with the other therapists, liaison with the ward staff. So let's see that that in initial interview, if we say that it is an informal discussion with the patient in order to gain an insight of her previous level of functioning, details of her home environment, uh, leisure interest, and her perception of any anticipated functional difficulties that may follow discharge from hospital. Also, you can say assessment of transfers, that is from bed, bath, chair, and toilet. Domestic activities of daily living assessment, that is making a hot drink, preparing a meal, or which is or any kind of activity. And I'll be discussing this in activity analysis later in this slide. Also, home visits, liaison with therapists, and other ward staff. So that is what which is much more of important to consider when we deal with this kind of patient. There is a kind of assessment which you go through and follow through for the patient in a course of time. So now let's go deeper into topic about the results and identification of the strengths and problem. So in the occupational therapy, it's not that we follow a particular theoretical model, but which is under influence by COPM. It divides occupation into three main areas, that is self-care, productivity, and leisure. But the model also focuses on three components of occupational performance, that is affective, physical, and cognitive, which is very much important to know these aspects of patient's functioning, because she just not only went for a radical mastectomy, but she also went through a uh, amputation. So that is not that easy task as it seems. So it is important to us to understand the other issues, psychosocial and professional issues, which are overcoming with this patient. So according to the COPM, the client's environment is also an important aspect to consider. It can be either enabling or constraining. All of these areas are considered when identifying Mrs. X's functional strengths and programs using the assessment methods which I mentioned earlier. So, consistent with the holistic nature of COPM, the social and psychosocial aspects of Mrs. X's disability were considered, as well as issues relating to function ability are also to be considered. So that's why these aspects can impact on how client adapt to their disability. So now, if we talk about more, so the this aspect is self-care, productive, leisure, affective, physical, and cognitive. So if we talk about psychosocial issues, that is the thing is that the cancer is perceived as a very threatening disease, and it has a described as one of our culture's taboo subjects. As such, 30 to 47% of the patient of the cancer patients experience psychological distress following the diagnosis. The word cancer strikes fear into people as such. It is a disease with a reputation of almost mythological properties. If in 19th centuries, if you see, tuberculosis stood out as a disease aroused the most dread and repulsion, cancer is in 20th century equivalent. Much of the fear evoked by the cancer is in relation to the fear of loss it can provoke. So the losses are again the physical strength loss, the well-being loss, independence, roles, interpersonal relationships, sexual functions, life expectancy, control, mental integrity. These are the losses which are there seen in the stages of cancer. So again, the cancer patients usually employ a combination of the coping strategies in order to manage the stresses. The coping that can be seeking and using social support. That is, this involves establishing connections with individual who can offer informational, tangible, and emotional support. Escape avoidance. Next is the escape avoidance. So the four kind of coping skills are seeking and using social support, escape avoidance, distancing, and focusing on the positive. So in escape avoidance, is this involves the avoidance of stresses throughout the fantasy or wishful thinking. In distancing, this involves dealing objectively with the stresses by minimizing its significance. Focusing on positive is this involves taking a constructive attitude and use of positive thinking. So now, if you see that here the patient employed the use of the last of these strategies in dealing with her cancer and also her subsequent 4-quarter amputation. So this strategy includes the individual finding new way faith, rediscovering what is good in life, and changing or growing up as a person in a good way. So that is a kind of a turning point which the person sets. So if you say that she resolved to join an exercise program for the amputees on her discharge from hospital, illustrating a willingness to initiate a new leisure interest in seeking of network support to provide a feeling of membership within a group. It is such constructive actions that are associated with improved outcomes. Individuals who display this tend to adapt better than those of who feel helplessness. So that is all depend on subjectively on the patient and their way of dealing it. But then we as an occupational therapist can help them to deal better in these situations. So again, it is if you say, it is such constructive actions that are associated with improved outcomes. And if you say that believing there is nothing they can do to improve their situation is a very problematic situation. So the patient can be said to demonstrate a sense of self-efficacy in her motivation to change as aspect of her health behavior and thereby enhance her health. So here the patient decision to start practicing regular physical exercise is constructive in itself, and it has both psychological and physical benefits. Exercise can help increase self-esteem and reduce stress itself, and also exercise can be has been shown to increase endogenous opioids in the body. So this being effective in reducing the pain. So if you see amputations on the other side, can be profound, uh, uh, can have a profound psychological effects on the individual. The experience of a newly acquired disability can produce cyclic feelings in the disbelief, denial, anger, panic, self uh, devaluation, and guilt, altering the feelings of relief and exultation. So, commonly, the individuals also experience a sense of loss and a phase of mourning, similar to the experience of a bereaved uh, and perks. So, if you say that it has been found that the individual who repress and or avoid these feelings of grief following limb loss to experience more phantom limb than other amputees. So, it has been suggested that the phantom phenomena can result in part of from the individual's need to compensate for the void in their body image, encouraging patients to confront their losses and grief and can reduce their experience of phantom pain. The use of guided imagery to refocus patients' maybe attention and has also been found to be beneficial. Not only has the patient experienced body image alteration through her amputation, but also through her hair loss. That is again the big problem which the patient experiences in this kind of a problem. That body image is a very important thing and can lead to decrease in self-esteem, grief, and depression. And the patient previously mastectomy with the previous and this patient with the previous mastectomy is likely to have impacted upon her self-image also, and this can generate feelings of a loss of wholeness and diminish femininity. The breast is symbolic to a womanliness and sexual attractiveness and uh, nurturance, but that is the very important thing for a lady if you say in this aspect. So, an amputation of a body part, such as experienced by this patient, causes the individual to be stigmatized due to its very visible nature. Individuals with noticeable disfigurement are discredited in our society, which holds the belief that the physical beauty is good and deformity is bad. The cancer can cause individuals to feel stigmatized, and it is fairly common for the patient to become estranged from the family that and friends who may distance themselves from the patient due to social awkwardness and the desire to avoid confronting distressing and issues. So that's what means it doesn't is not only change the image of the patient, but also there is a stigma which is related to them about the society, how people think and how people see them with this kind of a problem. So cancer can contribute to an external locus of control, and the cancer patients commonly experience a sense of loss of control over their lives due to the uncertain nature of the disease cause, course, prognosis, and treatment. So Mrs. X, however, showed an internal locus of control to some degree, in that she took responsibility for her own health by deciding to join the exercise group. So her cancer and subsequent amputation have led to the loss of Mrs. X's work role, and to which she intends to return as soon as possible as she is able. So productivity is highly valued in certain society, and loss of this role can lead to reduced self-worth and alteration in self-identity, economic hardship, depression, forced inactivity, and dependence. So Mrs. X displayed a sense of self-efficacy with regard to this issue in her expression of her determination to return to their role. So that's why if you see the cancer has been said to invade families, it affects many lives, not just that of a patient, but also of the others, of the caregivers, of the society, of related to the patient. Diagnosis of the cancer leads to the family experience of anticipatory grieving. It is invariably contributes to family tensions as roles and responsibilities and is distributed. It can be especially difficult for children, though whose parent has cancer. Uh, they may react with the feeling of fear, anger, sense of having been cheated, or irrational guilt that they may have caused by the disease. It is also very difficult for them to cope with changes in the usual routines, leading to insecurity and resentment. Mrs. X's children are currently undergoing counseling to help them to come to terms with their mothers and diagnosis. So that is that the children are also some way are in a grief situation, which brings them to certain emotional disturbance also. So here Mrs. Sachs is estranged from her husband, from whom she is separated, but with whom she still lives. And it has been found that the cancer can strengthen and enhance some relationships. However, it has been noted that it can increase the strain on problematic relationship. The marriage has been proven to be an important source of social and emotional support for those facing stressful events. Mortality rates to the married people are lower than those with the single people. So that's what, let me tell you again, mortality rates for married people are lower than those with the single people. So the lack of relationship in which mutual confidences are shared is related to decreasing quality of life and reduced ability to cope with the stressful life events such as cancer. So let me talk more further about professional issues. That although the occupational therapy approach in this case did not utilize any one theoretical model to guide intervention, but it is a relative theoretical model and more together. So a rehabilitative and adaptive approach was used, and it was influenced by the model and frames of references, maybe COPM, which influence interventions, and this model is discussed here due to as I have discussed for its relevance to this patient and its appropriateness for use within an oncological setting. The COPM describes the dynamic interaction between the individuals, their occupations, their roles, and the environments within they perform them. There is the affect, cognitive, physical, spiritual concepts are interconnected with the occupational performance areas, self-care, productivity, and leisure, and also with the client's various environments. So the model emphasizes the central importance of the individual, which is reflected in the model alliance of the client-centered practice. So if you see that central to the individual, the model recognizes the element of spirituality, which is viewed as the essence of a client's trust, truest self, and which is expressed through the performance of occupation. In this way, the model is holistic regarding individual as a whole, including the physical, social, psychological, and cultural needs. It was important with regard to Mrs. X that the occupational therapist recognized the necessity to address psychosocial aspects of her disability as well as physical and functional implications. So as traditionally, occupational therapy interventions has focused on physical environments. However, COPM recognizes the influences of social, cultural, and institutional environments also have upon the client's occupational performance. So here in our case of Mrs. X, the intervention plan needs to encompass not only her physical environment but also her social environment and institutional environment. The social environment can be addressing issues related to interpersonal and family environment, and the institutional environment relates to regarding accessibility to organizations and support groups and addressing employment issues. So the rehabilitative frame of reference also being used for this patient. This is based on the use of compensatory strategies in order to minimize functional limitations. These strategies involve the use of adaptive devices. So likewise, there are many models as such which are used. More of a client-centered approach is being used, and it is incumbent upon the therapist to make resources and information accessible to the clients. This enables the clients to make informed choices and decisions in according to their needs and with regards to the desired outcomes of the intervention. So that's how we can help the patient in this form. So, as per the intervention with this patient as began a few days before the surgery, it is the part of occupational therapist's role to provide reassurance to client during the pre-operative, post-operative, and rehabilitative phases of care. So there is pre, post, and rehabilitative phases in this form of treatment of this uh, issue, of this physical issue. Maybe by making contact with the patient before her surgery. This enabled the occupational therapist to introduce them and begin to establish a trusting, reciprocal, respectful relationship, a key element of the client-centered approach. Another aim of making contact with the client prior to her amputations was to address any concerns related to daily living that this patient might be anticipating. It also reflects a holistic element to the intervention as it encouraged Mrs. X to think about and confront her fears regarding her forthcoming disability. So, this is how we kind of soothe the patient and make the patient relax as per her conditions and well-being and performance factors. So this is all things which are very important. And Mrs. X was not seen again until a week after her operation, so she was medically stable and ready to begin rehabilitation. At this point, the initial assessment was carried out, and in order to gain information regarding the Mrs. X home situation and to reassess Mrs. X views about any functional problems she was experiencing. So that gives a real picture to us about her functional outcomes in regard to the occupation, in regard to her functional outcome and input. So this assessment highlighted the fact that the Mrs. X wanted to be able to continue to perform all the activities that she had carried out pre-morbidly, and it is also indicated that modifications could need to be made to Mrs. X home environment. So now if we say about prioritizing the problem list, that is with input from the patient, prioritized problem list was again formulated, and ensuring that the intervention would pertinent to Mrs. X life roles. So this priorities found the basis of the intervention plan, which would focus on Mrs. X rehabilitation to enable her to adapt to her disability and enable her to function as independently as possible in the areas of self-care, productivity, leisure. So if you see, the intervention plan plays importance in Mrs. X return to life role. That's why the intervention plan goal setting is very much important to help the patient to recover, and which is the core skill of occupational therapy. So as the goal for this patient is to facilitate adaptation to her acquired disability and to enable her to carry out activities of daily living and fulfill life roles. So therapeutic aims are also being made. There are certain objectives which are to be targeted. So if you see, the aims can be that she has to prepare hot meals independently and safely. She need to she need to be adapted to the facility to facilitate maximum independence and safety, to be able to manage all aspects of dressing, because again she's a female, and as you said that for a female patient only a female helper or caregiver can be there, but maybe for a male patient that can be both male and female, but for female patient there cannot be a male caregiver as such. Majorly if we concern with the society and she's dealing with the problem of dressing and all, so as such the male caregiver caregiver, even the family member as beside from the husband, won't be suitable for this patient care. Also, certain goals of return to be able to return to carry out her work role, to acknowledge and express the psychological implications of her amputation, to facilitate adjustment to a situation. So treat. So if we say the objectives are supposed to be agreed with the patient, and with a time frame of 3 weeks, by which time the ward's medical team anticipated that Mrs. X would be ready to discharge at home, with certain objectives. So therapeutic objectives can be that she'll begin practicing hot drink preparation in the occupational therapy department kitchen. She'll try out various items of assistive equipments in the department kitchen. She will select suitable recipe and inform occupational therapy. She can carry out meal preparation. She increases her activity tolerance from 45 minutes to 90 minutes and plus. She after home visit has been carried out, she will take an active role in decision making with regard to adaptations recommended by the therapist. She'll practice bath transfers using showered board uh, in the departmental bathroom. She will practice stair mobility with supervision of the therapist. She will be aware of the safety about the stair climbing. She'll be try out various items of accessory equipment in hospital. Regard also she will also liaise with the therapist with regard to which item she views as which meets her needs. Uh, she will read information provided by the therapist regarding one-handed computer keyboards, and she will acknowledge and express her concerns regarding change in her body image, regarding changes in her functional capacities, uh, detailing various support groups for amputees. So that's how we it can be in a very selective and descriptive manner, which can be consisted with this kind of patient and help them to function better in their performance. So selection, analysis, and application of activity, that is the main domain of occupational therapy, that we treat the patient on the basis of activities, analysis, and certain things. So, as a part of initial assessment, the therapist asks Mrs. X to walk a short distance of the ward and to perform bed, chat, and toilet transfer. So this is how this. So large intervention plan for the for Mrs. X were concerned with the activities of daily living, about herself, her need, more of a client-centered rehabilitative theories, and in the interest of her capacities. Also, through the discussion with the patient and through analysis of her mobility and transfers, it was apparent that the Mrs. X balance had been altered by the loss of her left arm. So, with regard to the transfers, Mrs. X's main problem was with using the bath. So she was subsequently seen in the occupational therapy department for further assessment and practice with her transfers using a shower board. So this item of equipment proved successful. The occupational therapist would recommend to the provision of shower board for using at home after discharge to facilitate greater independence and safety when showering. So, due to a reduction in her standing balance, um, Mrs. X practiced walking on stairs in hospital through assessment of her stair mobility, and it was evident that Mrs. X, to walking safely, she needed to use a rail on her left side, on her right side, to provide extra stability. So that's how, if we see that these are central kinds of assessment to be conducted for the patient. Also, to enable to for a referral to be made to assess home visit, that is with the without the patient present, was made in order to measure the patient status, a thorough assessment of the of her home environment, and to highlight any other hazards that may be compromise her safety following discharge. However, an environmental modification reflects another facet of rehabilitative frame of reference. It is a compensatory strategy that aims to maximize the functional performance. So an important aspect of client-side approach used was the regard to the provision of resources and information. Mrs. X was given a list of compensatory techniques to assist with the daily living and also information on companies that manufacture one-handed computer keyboards. So there are many modifications and through which we can help the patient in all the aspects of activities and their performance. There are, so that's why we have to do certain activity analysis and we have to deal with the patient in that particular form. So I'll be discussing you with you about activity analysis of particular thing in the next slide. So here the activity analysis, there is the model activity analysis was chosen and consistent with the COMP, and it addresses the cognitive physical capabilities of an individual, acknowledges the environmental consideration, and it is a holistic in that it needs considered psychosocial elements of activity. So that's the activity analysis. So here we have taken the activity of cooking spaghetti. So here if you see the activity process, so the activity process is what, that it is about the productivity appropriateness, that is activity is appropriate to the patient's lifestyle and interests. So here there are certain steps of activity process, that is getting the saucepan out of cupboard, fill the saucepan in boiling water, place the saucepan on the hob, turning the cooker on, set hobs to correct setting, weigh out the spaghetti, then when water boils, put spaghetti into pan, allow water to return to boil, allow 10 minutes of spaghetti to cook, turn off hob, drain cooked spaghetti, put cooked spaghetti on the pan. That is the first step of the activity process. Then in the second things, the ingredients, that is water and pasta. The third is tools and equipment required, that is saucepan, cooker, colander, kitchen scales and kitchen timer. Then safety precautions, that is awareness of dangers associated with using cooker and also of use of boiling water. So these are the activity process which we think, which we take care of the cooking of the spaghetti. Then environmental consideration on the other side, this is about the activity process. Environmental considerations are about the furniture positioning, perching tool, and can be positioned close to the cooker in order Mrs. X can sit between the components and helps her to conserve the energy, more of energy conservation process. External stimulation, that is a good lighting level to ensure safety. Auditory, there should not be any distractions. So these are the environmental consideration which you take care of the patient and other things, because she's working in a kitchen. Any spillage of the oil or water that can risk her to fall, so that all things to be taken care, that are considered as environmental factors. Then characteristics of activity, that are physical, sensory, perceptual, cognitive, psychosocial, social interaction, promotion of goals, motivation and interest. So physical can be performed on one handed, can be performed in a seated position. Then gross motor activity, eye hand coordination, weight bearing of lower limbs, ability to perform sit to stand transfers, standing and sitting balance, control trunk control while in sitting. So these are all the physical factors. Sensory can be touch, hot, cooking controls, using timer for gratification at the end, that is the taste, sight, sound, touch. Perceptual skills can be body scheme, figure ground, kinesthesia, spatial relations, motor planning, proprioception. Cognitive skills can be concentrating, short-term memory, problem solving, sequencing, safety, judgment, basic uh, uh, numeracy of use skills, timers, decision making skills in order to select meal to be prepared. Psychosocial factors can be probably for success, confidence building, increasing sense of self-efficacy, gratification at the end of the task. Client is in a position of control and decision making. So this is all what gives you the psychosocial factors or self-control meaning to the patient. Then you have here the kind of social interaction, that the task can be performed by a client with the therapist and occupational therapist present in the kitchen, so that is more of a social interaction. Finished meal can be shared with staff, that is also a kind of gratification the patient feels and more of a confident feeling. Then promotion of goals and motivation and interest, that is about it promotes independence, gives client a sense of control, builds confidence, fulfills Mrs. X productivity needs relevant to Mrs. X lifestyle, skill can be transferred to the home environment. So this is all the things which are there for the patient regarding the problem. So that will to be considered and put as meaningful in the task. Then potential for grading. See, because these all things if the patient does by herself and gives a sense of efficacy and achievement, this gives a sense of success. So the patient feels that the patient can also perform this. Losing of the arm or because of cancer, the patient is never a limited factor. So that gives a sense of control and power to the patient to perform further in life. So the task of meal preparation in the potential for grading, that is task of meal preparation can be graded to increase demands of the client's physical and cognitive abilities. Demands of the client's functional abilities can be increased through the use of more complex recipes, combining meal preparation with simultaneous hot drink preparation, component tasks that require more fine motor task, grip strength, or undertaking meal preparation, or task longer to prepare to increase demand and activity tolerance. So like that, any activity should be graded to improve the efficacy and expertise of the patient. Grading and modification. So grading of the individual activities was not necessary for this patient, and she demonstrated competency in her task, which she returned to perform. However, the kitchen was very graded, and she began with a simple task. So see, it is that we have to do graded, but we also have to think that she should match the previous class. It's not that we have to make her expert for something, or she's going for some competition. So we have to think that she should match her previous functioning, and that we should not suppress her, or we should not uh, uh, over demand her to fulfill certain tasks. Because we should remember, we are not preparing her for some competition, we are just preparing her that she matches her own level of performance. Then evaluation of the activity and intervention. So one way in which the outcomes of the intervention can be measured was through client feedback. So for example, the following both of the kitchen assessment may be reported to the occupational therapist by the client, and reassessment to be done as per the readmission to the hospital. Interventions can be used in accordance with the WHO global strategy for cancer, which emphasize the importance of provision of education and information for the individuals with cancer. This strategy also stresses the importance of a holistic approach within the healthcare in order that psychosocial issues are recognized as well as medical and functional ones are also understood. Uh, so. Uh, so that's why it is important as for an occupational therapist to undergo through this detailed framework when we are dealing with the patient with cancer, and with majorly the radical mastectomy, even who has certain more complications of amputation. So that's what the so here we as an occupational therapist can help the person to adapt and to restore their functional abilities, even if they have lost the certain physical factors of the body. But it doesn't mean that the person is limited and is never able to do certain tasks if the patient wants to. The patient can. The patient remember that the client is never limited. If we think that he cannot do, that is our limitations but not of the client's limitation. So he or she is always able to perform in their aspects of life, and we as an occupational therapist can help them to achieve their aspects of life. Thank you. So these are the references I have mentioned for your reference, so you can refer it to get a detailed understanding of the topic.